All right, it's not all bad news. All right, better days do appear to be ahead next year. A recent survey of the nation's CEOs shows that they are more optimistic about sales rising, and they plan to spend more money on equipment and other tools and items to add to their payroll, and hopefully some new workers. Now, on top of that, big companies like GE, Pfizer, and Weyerhaeuser have all announced significant dividend increases just in the past month. But are companies really back from the brink? Our next guest says, maybe getting better, but it's still going to be painful. Peter Kaufman is the president of the Gordian Group, also the head of the group's restructuring and distressed M&A. Peter, good to see you again.
Nice to be here.
For corporate America, 2010 was actually a pretty good year. I mean, they were able to sell debt willy-nilly. They're throwing out dividend payments. But are overall balance sheets looking better heading into the new year?
Well, you know, I talked about this about 5 or 6 weeks ago. We're in the midst, in our view, of a jobless recovery. Stocks are flying. Companies are doing well. They've got a lot of cash in their balance sheet. I think that the new tax cuts are going to be relatively helpful for corporations because there's going to be, it is some stimulus, right? Tax cuts continue. The payroll holiday, the incentive for corporations to buy new equipment because they get to depreciate 100% of it in year one. I think that's all relatively good news. But I don't think it's going to move the needle for a couple of reasons. Number one, not necessarily going to provide a lot of jobs growth. We've talked about that before. I have some other thoughts about that today.
Well, let's get to that because that is everything. Why not? And our viewers get ticked off, as they should be, when they hear that, oh, you're going to pay out all these dividends, you got $1 trillion in the S&P 500 or so in cash. Why aren't companies using that money to hire people?
They will eventually, but it's going to be on the margin. Middle-class jobs, as we've known them, are gone, and they're really not going to come back. Companies they outsourced overseas. They've learned how to be lean and mean and be more productive with less. Retail sales grew 7.5%, but the hiring only went up by less than 0.5%. So they're doing more with less, which is why I think that the real future of this country, near term, is an infrastructure spending. The longer term, it's focus on clean tech, biotech, nanotech. Industries where we can take a leadership position in this country and employ a lot of people. I've talked a lot about this with Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. I think she agrees with that. Yeah. And I think it's going to be good for New York and good for the country longer term. But near term, it is an issue.
And New York is hard to use as a positive example for anything, I think, except, I will say this, up in Albany, right, there's that sort of tech corridor that they've built. They had tax breaks. They've lured in big companies, Intel, semiconductor companies, and they've got a pretty burgeoning tech center up in upstate New York near Albany. A lot of people don't know that, but it's been adding some high-paying jobs. Is that what you're talking about? Because when our viewers hear infrastructure, they think someone's going to fill a pothole.
Well, infrastructure near term is filling a pothole and fixing bridges, but longer term, that's exactly what I'm focused on, and more importantly, Senator Gillibrand is focused on, which is that tech corridor and different pockets around New York State where you can have a public-private partnership to focus on those sectors which we think are the next future for this country in the middle class and job creation. The other overhang is that, as you and I talked about and I foreshadowed, QE2 looks near term like it's sinking rather than swimming. Interest rates have gone up. I'm very concerned about inflation. We could be looking at stagflation, very low growth, but inflation creeping up. I'm not sure how big an issue it'll be in 2011, but I do foresee over the next couple of years that inflation is coming back. And, of course, the borrowing costs, which have been so appealing for companies and entrepreneurs of late, able to refinance, get easy money, that's going to become increasingly more difficult. I think when that happens, you're going to see more pressure.
People don't want to hear that. We can't hear that credit is going to be tighter for mom and pop, right? Because credit's been widely available for big corporations. Walmart can sell $1 billion in debt at 1%.
Not to be glib, but it's not that it's been... Mom and pop haven't had any credit availability, so the tightening of credit is going to hit up and down the food chain. And entrepreneurs, we're doing a lot of work with entrepreneurs with interesting intellectual property these days. Venture capital firms are pulling back on seed money. These folks need some guidance on how to monetize. Small businesses and mid-sized businesses, and even larger businesses, are going to need creative help on how to access financing as interest rates start to perk up.
Well, listen, we got to leave it there, but it's good to hear that a guy like you is talking to some of these senators because maybe you can teach them a little bit about business. Peter Kaufman, thank you very much.
Thanks, Brian.
Appreciate it. All right, coming up, it is time to head